Good afternoon, just waiting for all attendees to be visible to us, and that number is growing as I speak, and then we'll give you the formal introduction. Still more attendees coming online, which is a real positive. And I will formally commence the presentation for you now. So good afternoon to you all, and welcome to this virtual conference particular to the organisational perspectives of information modelling. And this is brought to you on behalf of the UK BIM Alliance. I'm Christine Gausden, and I am part of the UK BIM Alliance Communities Leadership Team. I'm actually an academic, however, I have a strong background in practice, having undertaken both facilities management and asset management for a complete plethora of public sector and commercial clients. So only one degree of separation from our speakers today, who are, and you can see this on the screen, Hadeel Saadoon, who is my colleague from the UK BIM Alliance. She is equally part of the Communities Leadership Team, and she is the lead at Coventry University, particular to digital transformation. Hadeel has been particularly instrumental in facilitating our conference today, so a huge thank you on behalf of all of us to Hadeel. Caroline Pepper is Senior Space Manager at the University of Birmingham, and she has strategic responsibilities in this guise. She will be one of our speakers today, and she will provide further information in that regard. Our concluding speaker will be Jo Bishop, and she is Head of Information and Systems at the University of Warwick, and she has led several successful business transformation projects in the recent past. Each of our presenters today will be providing their personal perspectives as to the implementation of BIM, and I stress from an operational perspective. And I would remind you, and this is to the wider audience, whilst the ISO 19650 series is in place, there's a plethora of data within the UK BIM Alliance website providing guidance and best practice. We very much all still have much to learn, particular to the operational application of BIM. You will note from the timetable for this conference, there will be a roundtable discussion on conclusion of the individual presentations. And this will avail you all with the opportunity to provide your questions. You will note you're on silent, and you are requested to provide your questions by virtue of the chat box. So you can put questions within that particular or via that particular mode. I'll also bring to your attention that this session, this series of presentations, is being recorded. So that's the housekeeping over and done with, the generic introductions over and done with. And without further ado, I shall pass to Hadeel to commence proceedings with her personal perspective. Thank you, Hadeel.
Thank you so much, Christine. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us in our webinar today. We've got excellent speakers today joining us from universities in particular this afternoon, and we are part of the BIM for States group. BIM for States aims to provide a platform for knowledge sharing for organizations who are client owners and operators who need to manage information from not just in the project phase, but also utilize them in the operational aspect and the operational phase once they receive their buildings. And we have been collaborating with a number of universities in the past, and moving forward, we'd like to reach out to other organizations that are outside of the higher education sector. We've been speaking to NHS organizations, we've been speaking to organizations who deal with airport facilities, and we would be really happy to get a lot of people on board to join our platform and share knowledge with the wider group and exchange information basically on the challenges that we all are going through. So my name is Hadeel Saadoon. I am the States BIM Manager at Coventry University States. Today I'm going to speak to you about our journey in digitizing our estates information, and with a focus on information management for building operations and how we are trying to capture and maintain building information to support us with the operational maintenance of our facilities. The main aim of establishing this journey is to add value stateswide, and I have to give recognition to my colleague Joe Bishop, who is with us today for establishing our team, actually, which is the Business Information Systems team, over 5 years ago when she was at Coventry University. And when our team was established, the main goal was to digitize the estates information, ensure that they are available and on accessible and secure systems, and ensure that they are regularly updated. So when we started, we had a lot of information from various teams, including information coming in from state development, from live projects, information on health and safety of the buildings, information on grounds, distribution, environmental information, catering, operational information, and all of these were hosted on different platforms and not always available to be and readily accessible by the various stakeholders who would need access to them. So we started our journey by trying to look at the existing information, looking at our archived information. We've gone through a major transformation of capturing our information that are available in the archive and ensuring that they are scanned and uploaded into our systems. And also we've done a major update of all of our building plans. We've scanned them, we've surveyed them, and we have updated the CAD versions of our plans. And then afterwards, we started creating building information models of those plans. And the main building block was reviewing and creating building information management policies, looking at the standards, the international standards, and ensuring that we have the right standards in place, the right processes, so that everybody can follow them, and so that everybody understands how we are managing our information, capturing them and updating them. Once we had our full campus buildings planned, scanned and surveyed, and we had all the plans updated, we started by retrospectively modeling our buildings, and we started by doing that for the architectural layout. And that created the basis for having information containers in the information models, which enabled us to host the space data and later on in that process capture the asset information. The biggest obstacle, which became later the biggest strength for us, was collaboration between teams, because it was minimum, if not sometimes not existent, between some of the teams in the States. So we established those collaboration channels. We started to ensure that our teams communicate between each other, especially the project development team with the operational maintenance team, to ensure that they understand the operational needs and the information that are required at building operation very early at the project start, whether it's a new build or a renovation or development of an existing structure at the university. We do need to ensure that information requirements are available, are known by the project management team, and we need to ensure that these information requirements are available in the contracts before the project starts, so that throughout the design, construction, and moving to the delivery of the final project, we ensure that we capture information that is suitable for facilities management and asset management. The next step was reviewing our systems, reviewing our internal estate systems, ensuring that the systems that we've got in place are fit for purpose, and we identified the need to have a common data environment system to act as the main repository for our building information, to host all of our documents and capture our asset information. So we procured a common data environment system back in 2020, and moving forward, we started developing it. The next step that we started looking at now is systems integration, and that is the next stage in our journey. We just started with feasibility studies to look at how we can integrate our common data environment system with the CAFM system, how we can in the future integrate with the BMS system and other existing state systems that require information. And moving forward, we will look at continue to develop that in the vision of creating a digital twin of our campus by ensuring, first of all, that our foundation blocks are solid and we're building it on accurate information. So as I mentioned, we've started by capturing the existing state information. We done basic laser scanning of most of our buildings. However, for the buildings that were undergoing major refurbishment, we've done a thorough 3D point cloud surveys of those, and we have been able to create BIM models based on those surveys. And from new projects, we started requesting BIM models, and we've started receiving our information as BIM models, and then also we started receiving asset information in COBI format, and then we started mapping those to our Planon, which is the CAFM system. And at the moment, the models that we receive from new projects are obviously the best models we have, because we're receiving federated models, not just the architectural layout, but we're receiving also the M&E data and the structural information from those projects. We had a lot of challenges. The main one is managing the legacy data, the backlog of data. Our building drawings were not aligning to actualized builds. Room numbers were not matching the data in our CAFM or any of our systems, to be honest. Our O&M manuals were not indexed. There were inconsistencies in the room numbers format. So we needed to look at all of those information and look at all the inconsistencies in our data and try to come up with solutions to ensure we unify them and ensure we manage them and update them in the best way possible to ensure that we can manage the buildings for the operation. So for BIM operations, we are managing complex estates. We've got campuses in Coventry, London, and Scarborough. We've got a lot of projects going on at the same time. We're managing more than 500 job orders every week. So our teams, our technicians, our operational managers need accurate drawings, accurate building information to ensure that they can and need them to be accessible in our system so that they can run and operate our buildings in the most efficient way possible. We're dealing with complex space and asset data that sits on a number of systems. So we need to ensure that any data we capture is fed back to our systems, and also we need to ensure that these are updated regularly. So in that case, we started to look at the systems that we've got, any systems that hold operational data, review them, and we wanted to look at reducing the number of systems that is available that may not be used frequently. And we learned that a lot of our infrastructure and organization information is data rich but analysis poor. So we learned that we could use the information that we've got to analyze how we are performing and which system perform best, for example, in terms of fire alarm, lighting, etc. And are we performing against our customer expectations, and also what are our problem areas. So we started to learn from the data that we've got to try to gain some insights in the way we are performing and operating, and that is also developing as we continue to capture better information, and the quality of data starts to become better, which helps us to derive better insights into the way we operate our buildings. The systems, we also have complex estate systems to manage. not just in the operational aspect from BMS or CAFM, but we also deal with IT digital services. We deal with, for example, timetabling team who require accurate space information all the time. We deal with risk management teams, protection services. All those teams would have systems to enable them to operate, and they all rely on accurate space and building information to ensure the smooth running of their operations. So we looked at our systems and the operational systems, and we wanted to reduce the number of systems that we use and increase connectivity between those systems. So any system that is not being updated or not fit for purpose needs to go. And we looked at the systems that we've got and try to see which systems have an open API so that we can start creating links between them and start working on systems integration, because our systems need to communicate. And we looked at areas where we can derive efficiency, where we can benefit from the information that we have to improve our customer experience and the user experience of our estates teams who provide services to the wider university. We're working at the moment also with the IT digital services team, and we're looking at a new improved digital operating model where we are looking at enterprise-wide information and how these are captured, analyzed from design and built to the operational stages. And this structure is new at the university. But at the moment we started working together in one team, the Estates and IT Digital Services, and we see that as an opportunity to grow and work on different areas, including systems integration. The main building block in our information management journey was having the right data governance and data governance procedures, basically ensuring that we've got the right asset information requirements, the right building information requirements, and these were started from the operation maintenance team, and these are fed back to the projects team, to our wider stakeholders, our contractors, architects, anybody who's working with us on a university project, and they have to deliver those information requirements alongside the final constructed building, because these are critical to ensure that we can operate our buildings efficiently. We've started implementing digital workflows on-site and off-site. We recognize the importance of clash detection in the design and construction phase, and this is an example of our Beatrice Schilling building where we've implemented some of those workflows to ensure we detect clashes and prevent them basically before the work goes on site. And in here you can see that at the moment we've completed this building, and it was one of the successful projects where we received accurate building and asset information. So to digitize our wide campus information, we've identified the need to, first of all, have an accurate information of the university and an accurate map that has the right legal boundaries of our freehold or leasehold properties. We need to identify exactly where our house settings are, soft landscape, where is our current university and student accommodation buildings, and areas of potential development. And from this fully updated map, we started creating our digital campus and started modeling our digital campus based on information from open source maps and of a tool that we use, which is Autodesk InfraWorks. And we started also importing the new BIM models that we are receiving from projects, and also BIM models we created in-house of our buildings. For example, engineering and computing building, the hub, Richard Crossman that you can see here, the science and health building, which we received as a new building at the university, and the library, which is one of the existing buildings that we've got on campus that we modeled. And we now had the opportunity to look at the wider campus and see areas of development. For example, in this area, you can see the Allen Berry building, and there are at the moment discussions on trying to see where we can open up some areas to allow more landscape areas and open up the university heart to not just to the staff and students, but also to the public. So this has provided an added benefit of trying to do some future planning for the campus as well. Other benefits include what we aim to achieve in terms of energy management. So we started with a feasibility study of looking at energy modeling of two of the buildings, an old one, which is the Sir John Lang building, and a relatively new one, which is the engineering and computing building. And we collaborated with IES in this case study, and it was successful to prove that we can, in fact, reduce the energy consumption in those buildings by 15%, and we want to take the next step, hopefully, in that feasibility study to see where are the areas of energy savings and where we can identify additional areas for improvement. Another aspect is we benefited from having digitized information of our buildings throughout the COVID-19 crisis. In this pandemic, we had to, of course, work remotely. And because we had captured all of our building information beforehand, we were able to benefit from this database that we've got when we started planning for social distancing. So we produced a campus reopening plans, one-way and two-way systems in-house. We were able to create all of those based on the information that we've captured, and we were able to trust that the information that we have is accurate because we've captured it ourselves. We were able to do occupancy and seating plans because we captured information, even the furniture information were accurate. And we were able also to do some remote management of work orders because the information were available on our systems that is accessible online. And we were able to manage the project requests online. So that was a significant success to our team, because if we hadn't established those systems beforehand, if we hadn't captured our building information, we wouldn't have been able to provide our services as smoothly as we did while working remotely and managing our campus remotely, and even helped us to manage the reopening of our campuses as we try to go back to the new norm. Other benefits of the organizational data includes the full life cycle management of information. So this is one of the benefits that we've got for our new common data environment system, Glider BIM, because now we can manage projects on our system. We can manage the building information from planning to design to construction into the operation and maintenance of those buildings. And we are hosting them all on this one platform. And this is forms the foundation of a future digital twin of our university by just capturing first individual building information, such as the hub project here, and also capturing the legacy data of our buildings. We started by importing all of our operation maintenance manuals of our existing buildings, all the health and safety documents, and uploading them into the common data environment so that we can have all of our information accessible securely into one system. And we then started creating links between the information that we are uploading, and also between the information models that we have created. And the next step is to look at how we can ensure that the metadata that we capture is displayed to an asset level, and we that is part of a major project also, which is the asset information management project. And we're slowly trying to capture our information and slowly trying to ensure that they are available on our systems, and not just from a building or asset level, but also we want to ensure that the documents that we've got on the system are linked to those asset information. And this is we're still at the basic step of this journey. However, our vision is clear, and we are creating the right process and trying to develop towards achieving this vision. The Planon is our main system at the stage that holds our asset information and space information, and this system ensures the smooth running of the operational projects. And we've developed a lot of tools in Planon that captures building information and ensures that it's reflected to our services. And we created a lot of gadgets to help with asset tagging, to help with viewing building information, to help with viewing GIAs and IAs of information, and also tools to book spaces, for example, meeting rooms and reserved desks. And all of those information are based on accurate building information that comes from our building plans that has come from our BIM models. And our vision is to create a link later on between the common data environment and system and Planon, so that we can feed systems automatically from both systems, because at the moment we are uploading information from one system to another, but we would like to have an automatic link to transfer data. And we would like to continue that integration, so that the space information and asset information is all updated regularly between our systems. And we benefited from development to our systems that were not available previously. For example, Planon has now an enhanced BIM module that we are investigating, and even our BMS system has enhanced features that allows us to manage the information in a better way. So the other key system that we would like to integrate with is the BMS, which we use Siemens Desigo, and we've upgraded to Desigo CC. And one of the best features that we've got now in the system is the ability to have building information models on Siemens, and this is very recent. In the past couple of months, we've had access to the BIM module, and we have been very happy to see our first import of a BIM model has been successful from the first start. So that was a major success to us to see that the BIM models that we are creating can be actually transferred into all of our operational systems. And hopefully in the future we'll be able to look at integration avenues between our systems, because that is our vision. So the future, we understand that we need to link our systems together to have an ecosystem of systems. Information need to flow from all of the systems to be up to date and available to all of our teams. And there is actually a university-wide project that looks at a university central data warehouse to host all the university information and link to, have a two-way communication with the estate's digital services information and our systems that are available at the states, and ensure that these systems and the information that we hold is fed back to the wider teams at the university to benefit from them, including the financial services, the staff services, and the student services as well. So thank you so much for listening today. You can follow BIM for Estates online on Twitter. We've got the handles for you here. And I'll pass on now the presentation to my colleague, Caroline, who is a senior space manager at the University of Birmingham, to speak to us. So over to you, Caroline. Thank you.
Thank you, Hadeel. So I'm just waiting for presenter rights. There we go. Okay. Can I check, Hadeel? Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see it. Thank you, Caroline.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Actually, that previous presentation was really interesting to see the synergy with different universities' journeys. So so first of all, thank you for inviting me to present. And my topic is space management at the University of Birmingham and our journey thus far. And hopefully it will provide an insight into how space data is embedded within our processes as a holistic BIM approach. So I wanted to start with a disclaimer. My background is in space management, timetabling, and I used to manage the technical teams that supported the academics. So there was a real connection between those three areas. But not within BIM and more of a digital approach. I'm also a doctoral researcher. I'm now entering year 5 of a research project in architectural design, looking at the impact of informal learning space on students from a cognitive, psychological and physical perspective. But yeah, it's been hard going trying to juggle that in a full-time job. So so yeah, my background has been in IT, estates, and previous to that, media services. So within the team structure, I am a bit of an anomaly. Okay, so to give you a bit of a context of the University of Birmingham, we've got about 36,000 students and circa 264 buildings. I use the word circa because it depends on how you define a building. We've had multiple discussions about this. I think we're up to a count of 322 buildings if we include our gas meters. We've got 629,000 gross internal area, and that is covering multiple sites. So we have Birmingham, we have a new site that's been opened in Dubai, which is the image you can see on the screen. We've got Stratford, Doncaster. In fact, we've got buildings everywhere. And I think since I've started, we've almost had a space amnesty where we're starting to discover buildings and assets all over the place. And an example, our information manager found one the other day in Australia. So it's such a diverse campus. We have just had our capital programme approved, and that is a significant amount of money. And not, oh, let me just reshare, bear with me a second. I'm just going to reshare my screen, bear with me.
We can see your screen.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I can see your screen.
Okay, no, that's fair enough. Thank you. There we go. Okay. And yeah, so that the capital programme includes a clinical skills building we're working on, energy accelerator building, we've got a refurb of our arts building, and we've also got a significant opportunity for refurbishment of existing spaces, and that's to support the post-COVID world of agile working. So I've currently got, I think on my portfolio, something like 32 projects that I'm working on. So if we have a look at our team structure, we are a tiny team, and we're very diverse in what we do. And although this shows a hierarchical structure, I think we operate very much in a matrix management structure and have a team-based approach to projects. Also to let you know that the BIM manager role is currently out to advert at the moment. Unfortunately, we are losing our BIM manager. The closing date is the 3rd of July, so if anyone is interested, it's a fab team to work for. So sorry, shameless plug there. Within our team, we have got a number of apprentices, and actually that is really helpful because apprentices bring energy and bring creativity with them. So we're delivering a huge amount of work for a very small team. So moving on to the space management process. When I arrived at the University of Birmingham, so I've been here since April, all of the space data was held in a system called IPR. I didn't even learn that system because I knew that we were going to be holding the data in, well, it's replicated, it's held in the Revit rooms. And one of my first roles in consultation with the wider team was to create a space hierarchy, which I've showed an image there. And that is based on 8 categories. So we have the teaching, we have research, we have support, balance, residential, external, and we actually also have a category for unknown. And this has enabled us to move away from free text fields, which caused an absolute headache. Before I arrived, there was a team of 4, so everyone did things slightly differently. But actually having a defined space hierarchy ensures complete consistency and control. And we applied it to every single room across campus over a 5-6 month period. And we also reviewed the ownership hierarchy as well. So the space is federated in Planon, and that helps to support the asset management side of things. And I'll share a map with you in a few moments. So as part of the refurb projects that we're working on, we also use Matterports to digitize the buildings. We share that with stakeholders, and that is really helpful. An example, we're working on one of the Aston Webb buildings, and even sharing the Matterport with the QS, they're able to check power requirements, have a look at the detail, and do it really easily. So every new project that's coming in, we are trying to Matterport those buildings. So we hold all of the drawings and the data relating to the drawings on the CDE, which is our web space. We have PDFs available, but there is direct access to BIM 360. We also have a process in place for amending the drawings of the space data, and that is through the CDE. And although it's tightly controlled, it enables project managers, building managers, and key stakeholders to notify us of any changes. So this is a more of a dynamic approach to updating plans and data. So this has actually enabled us to move away from what we used to have, an annual space validation process, which could be quite laborious and quite painful. So it is much more of a dynamic process now. We also have a space management apprentice who focuses on data analytics and has developed Power BI as an analysis tool for reporting. He has been able to create specific reports for us, so it's easy to pull off and share with the different colleges. An example, he's just in the process of developing a report for timetabling, and that's to map teaching space requirements against modules. We've also undertaken a mapping exercise looking at space data interfaces, very similar actually to what Hadeel had shared, and how the systems interface with each other. And it maps Planon against Revit, and it also identifies all the related systems and stakeholders. So you've got the key players, the timetabling, the card access, accommodation, security, which has been really helpful in understand how those data flows. So going on to BIM stats and standards. On the BIM journey, we still have got a very long way to go. We have 27 buildings, that are full BIM implemented, and that equates to 99,000 square meters. In fact, that's a very specific figure that we put in there, so that's been pulled off a report. The BIM standards have been developed by the University of Birmingham for the University of Birmingham. And we used the standard NRM classification. Uniclass didn't work for us, but it's everything has been defined for us by us. The space, data, and ownership hierarchy is integral to BIM requirements, and is captured very early on a new build or refurb project as well. So it's never an afterthought. What we've chosen works for us and has been designed for use in models in operation as a dynamic approach. The process and systems and structure of the data enables consistency and standardization. So an evidence-based approach. So what's next? Well, we need to understand our space and how we use our space, and to do this we've got to be able to evidence it. So projects we're working on include, and similar to what Hadeel had shared, the Siemens partnership to deliver a range including digital twin, and the area aligned to my role is the utilization of data through sensors, and we're using the Untitled technology. This is being deployed now in our first 25 buildings, so we're just starting to get the data sets come through. And to be able to really understand, I think we'd like to be able to triangulate that data with CO2 sensors and Wi-Fi mapping as well. So there's a lot of projects that are starting to emerge that will really help map what we've got and how we use it. We're also undertaking a condition survey, and this will be followed by an in-house functional suitability trial. And we have had some information shared from both University of Warwick and Coventry University. So thank you for that in helping us define what our functional suitability will be. And that data will be held on our space schedules as well. So visualization tools, visualization and transparency of data, we're using various tools. We widely use BIM 360 and docs within the department, and also with key stakeholders across the university. This is aligned with the data that we hold on the CDE, and as I said earlier, the CDE links directly to BIM 360. We have a BIM cave, which we use to work and share projects. An example of that is the Exchange building. We also have a progressive director of estates who recognises the benefits of stakeholder engagement and a shared vision in developing our estate. So to support this, we're looking at more of a sandbox area within our estates department, and also be more agile in how we're working and be able to test and visualize projects. We're also working on a project with a company called IDEA, and we've named that Vision Space, and that's 3D mapping of all of our campus, and that will enable 3D views based on well, it could be based on any parameter that we put in there. So it could be ownership, it could be hierarchy, any filter. One of the interesting visualizations, we're not quite sure how it will work, will be our Muirhead Tower, which has got 12 floors. So if we look at actually blowing that up to look at it floor by floor, it will be very large. So but that will be a really, really powerful tool for us to use in the future. So I've come to the end of the presentation. The University of Birmingham journey, there has been a significant amount of work that has been completed by the team, not me, because I'm fairly new to the team, but specifically by our BIM manager to help define standards and process for which we work with. We're certainly not there, and I don't think on our BIM journey we'll ever be there, because the estate continues to evolve. So that's me. Thank you for listening, and happy to take questions afterwards. But at this stage, I shall hand over to Joe Bishop from the University of Warwick, who is going to talk to us about starting again with purpose. So thank you.
Thanks, Caroline, and also thank you to Hadeel, to really inspiring presentations there. I think it's really helpful to kind of see, we all keep talking about our journeys, don't we? And I think it's really helpful to be able to kind of get that vision in at different points in the journey. So I'm just waiting while I get presenter view so I can share you my screens. Okay, just 2 seconds. Will I just make sure we give you the right screen? That over onto there. Okay. So yeah, and actually interesting, Caroline, I really liked your bit talking about defining the space hierarchy as well, because interestingly here at Warwick we choose to have 80 different ways to define a toilet space, so we've got some work to do. So welcome everybody. I hope you're enjoying this so far. My name is Jo Bishop and I'm the head of information and systems here in the Estates Department of University of Warwick. I've spent kind of a number of years kind of doing this type of role and kind of working directly with data and information and systems. I definitely class myself as a girl geek and I'm not ashamed of it. I spent 10 years at Coventry University. Last 2 years were kind of within a research centre, but you know, essentially a significant chunk of my role was in Estates doing a similar role, and as Hadeel's kind of alluded to, kind of that was about kind of getting that ball rolling, and it's just amazing to see kind of how far they've come at Coventry now, and the progress that they've got in place, and they're really delivering now stuff that, you know, we didn't envisage when I was at Coventry kind of all those years ago as well. So yeah, really positive. Just find my mouse so I can get on. So today I want to talk to you really about this opportunity again, I guess, that I've got here at Warwick, having been here 18 months now, to kind of almost start this process again and hang on the coattails of everybody else's journey and things, and just have a bit of a reflection about kind of the things that I've learned and kind of as we've gone away, and to kind of try and see kind of where our vision is heading now as well. So just a little bit about University of Warwick. Figures there, I'm not going to read them out for you, you can see them. As a number of universities are, we're growing in terms of student numbers, and you know, everyone's driving for that research income and things. So you know, it's a really the whole kind of HE sectors become so immensely competitive now, and you know, we're all fighting to get the kind of the same students in as well. A little bit about our campus. So we've got a lot of buildings. You know, we've got some really small buildings as well, which kind of ramps up those numbers. We're not too dissimilar in terms of GIA, I noticed, to Birmingham. And you know, we've got in the region of about 50,000 spaces, individual spaces that we are looking after. The hectare figure there, that's our site area, but we've also got lots of kind of farmland that's tenanted out and things, so we don't include that on that figure either. And we're kind of spread across 4 sites, although we've got our main campus, we've got we've got a campus over in Wellesbourne, and we've got some properties in London, and we've got a little bit at the University Hospital as well. So as this kind of said, I'm trying to reflect on this presentation today about the journey that I've been on previously and what we're about to embark on here kind of at Warwick. And I kind of thought that this quote from Winston Churchill, it's one that I really closely associate with. And I think, you know, as a parent, you know, I know my children were not born, they didn't start life with the benefit of all of that previous experience. So, you know, part of my role as a parent's been to try and impart that knowledge and things. But then as they grow up and develop that history that they can look back on and things, that's about us enabling them to experience those mistakes so that they can then build their future kind of based on learning from the mistakes. And I think, you know, this is really essentially what Churchill's trying to say. It's about, you know, reflecting backwards, but it's not just about learning from your mistakes. I think looking backwards and kind of getting that history helps you to understand a little bit better about kind of ability to transform. You know, when we're looking at kind of digital transformation, you know, what's the current, you know, pace of transformation? What's the current you know, ability to transform, and what's the direction of travel at the moment and things, so that you can then adjust and then really kind of start setting that vision in the future. So as I joined Warwick, mine was a new role that had been created and definitely given kind of a remit to really support estates to transform their digital journey. And you know, I think it's really positive that people can see the need for these teams to be in place. You know, with the vast amounts of digital information out there, you need some really good positive teams in place to do that. So, you know, as I started here, they said, you know, you've got a team in place. I'm like, great, excellent. So I've got a team in place. And I think one of my first kind of mistakes at Coventry was kind of a little bit about my own expectations. And I maybe took for granted some of the things that we'd had in place in my previous teams with estates and at the research role. And I kind of took for granted a little bit of that team's own history as well. I hadn't really embraced Churchill's ethos. And it was a clear kind of, you know, the things that you see on there, they're the kind of, you know, some of the basic foundations that really provide that successful team in place. And you know, I realised that was missing. You know, the team were wanting to move ahead, and they needed some of these things to be in place so that we could be in a good place to start that transformation. And I think, you know, without that kind of solid foundation, you're setting yourself up to fail. So one of the first things we did here at Warwick, before I could even really get going on our digital transformation, was to get the team working as a team. So we started with this restructure, knowing that, you know, there's a lot of unknowns ahead, but we needed to move ahead with some real key points and building that flexibility so that as we grow and mature with our data and our information, that the structure can flex. Next was really about sharing with the team the art of the possible, you know. So, you know, we've seen this here today, you know, kind of the art of the possible. It is possible to get some of the stuff that Coventry and Birmingham are doing. You know, it's real. They're doing that now, and they're already thinking about what next, what else can we do and things. So making them, you know, helping that visioning with the team has been really important. And also kind of, I use the phrase engaging leaders. So, you know, not necessarily someone with a leadership role, but making people believe that and lead and be motivated to kind of, I don't know, steady themselves for the work ahead as well. And then kind of on the external to our team, it's one of the key aspects was getting other people on board with our visioning as well. So building those relationships with partners around the university that previously might have been kind of working in isolation or not realising the kind of the power of the data that we potentially can be delivering through my team, you know, like our IT department, space management, who sit outside of estates, legal, network, you know, all those types of people as well. And then, you know, really importantly, reflecting back on Churchill, it's about, I really needed to kind of go and hear all the issues and hear the history from people so I could judge and understand that motion that we've got at the moment and where it's going. And actually that to me was really enlightening, kind of sitting down and talking to people. So by the end of kind of last year, I felt the team is in a much better position now. I feel we've got many of the things there in place now. The team are alive. They're now kind of seeing that kind of possible kind of journey ahead now. And I think we were in that position. We're ready to kind of start continuing really with that digital transformation. So we said we wanted to have a vision. This is not rocket science. Driving data and technology standards forward to achieve timely and accurate and accessible information. That's the basics. That really is the basics. But we needed to set that to ensure that everybody had that understanding of what we're trying to do. It helps kind of with those conversations all around with the people that we're working with. And then it's about kind of making best use of our time ahead to make sure that we're gathering the right data and that we can use that for our knowledge and decision making, and that's done in a collaborative approach. So the university, Warwick University, have stated our aspiration for 2030 is to lead and influence and support positive change in the world. And I like to think my team can be part of that as well, and what we're trying to deliver. So what we see on screen here, IWMS, the Integrated Workplace Management System. You may also hear that termed as CAFM systems. So we started off looking at what systems we had in place, and we realised that those systems that we've got are quite flaky in places. We've got cracks identified in the system and in our processes, and knowing what that future will look like, reflecting on previous experience, and now the team understand that as well. We kind of understanding now that that's not going to work for us in the future. And I think whilst as I joined Warwick, I probably could have predicted that fairly quickly within a couple of weeks of looking at things, but I couldn't just jump in and say, oh, Joe's here, we're going to go and rip all the systems out and things. It's really important that everybody understands why we're doing that, the purpose of everything, so that they can have that shared visioning. And that kind of almost decision kind of comes from the team itself when they realise that things aren't going to work for them. And particularly when you open their eyes and show them the future of what things can be, and you show them what Coventry is achieving and what Birmingham's achieving, they go, wow, yeah, it's good. So we know that we're going to need to kind of be working on our IWMS system, particularly around that space data and asset data. And we're currently on a pathway to go and clean up those data sets. I think Hadeel and Caroline would both kind of probably be nodding here, kind of knowing that, those are for when you're managing an estate, they're two real critical data sets there that you need to have in a really good place. And it's about kind of not only just resolving the errors in the data, as Caroline reflected, it's about getting those structures in place so that we're not having 80 different ways to name toilets. So putting in place good structures and standards so that we benefit from that in the future as well. And then it's about moving to that concept of sharing that information around with people, so that they really so everyone understands what we're trying to do together as well. So we're trying to smarten up as well, kind of the way we capture our data around fault reporting, maintenance processes and things, so that our analytics are providing the right decisions. So we've reflected on some of the mistakes that we've made in the past, meaning that we're not capturing the information that we need in order to do the reporting so that we can make the decisions. So it's about baking all of that in from the start, and we've got opportunity to really start again, start afresh with some of this, which is really helpful. And we often hear from kind of staff and stakeholders that they're telling us that they don't have access to any of this information, you know, and sometimes they didn't even know that some of that information existed, and when it does exist, is it accurate for them? So, you know, on the right hand side, we're starting to kind of build some of the basics in SharePoint and things, so that we can enable that accessibility of information in that safe and secure manner. But we know already that there are other ways of sharing that data, and as Hadeel kind of alluded to, that system of systems is really important to have that concept as well, so that you are making kind of you have an overall view, and we're moving ahead with kind of that enterprise architecture approach with our systems here as well, so that we see how each systems are connected and the information transferring between them. And I think, you know, when we look at Office 365, I think, you know, a lot of organisations who weren't already using it suddenly took up using Teams, for example. You know, COVID hit, and bang, everyone's having their you know, meetings on Teams, and some people hadn't, you know, ever used Teams before. And, you know, we're certainly in a position here where Teams has been a bit of a free-for-all. So we've got information all over the place, and there's been no controls and no structures in place. So we're now working to kind of do some unpicking of that, and try and you know, set some standards in place, and make it work, and make sure that we're learning from some of that history that we've maybe not done so well in the past. So, you know, the way we're looking at here at Warwick at the moment, the combination of having our IWMS and SharePoint is going to give us in a better position. It's the next step kind of for us. But we know that and we were going, there's still that bit missing in terms of the digitalisation of that information. So what we're looking at doing now is embracing Esri, ArcGIS, using the mapping technology of Esri. And we think at the moment, this is going to give us a really good stepping stone towards kind of our journey for digital transformation. This is going to really help us, give us that ability to collaborate with our external contractors and our staff and our partners, and share that data in a real visual representation. It gives us kind of that extra dimension in terms of for our asset data and our space data. It gives us a place to store all of our external assets, which at the moment we just park against a space on the system called external. But where is that really? You know, where's that lamppost? Actually, you know, we need the coordinated data to give that a little bit of life as well. And we're looking now to kind of pull in all of our GIS data into one place, our overground and underground information, ecology data and things, tree surveys, that type of stuff. We can kind of put all that in one place. And we're looking for all kind of the three systems to become a system themselves, you know, delivering that information. So, you know, one of the things, one of the examples I give to my team, you know, you could, with these kind of combinations, you know, our student events team can access this, and you know, they might want to put up a big marquee for a barbecue event, and they'll be able to see where it's safe to put the marquee safes in stakes, so they're not going to get a cable strike. They might be able to, you know, if we're pulling in some of our Wi-Fi and our IT data, they could see where the Wi-Fi, you know, broadcast is strong. Perhaps they could see where some sensitive species are living in particular trees that might not appreciate the smell of hot dogs and onions and loud music and things. So it kind of just, you know, having access to that information for me is one of the most critical things that we have to drive towards and things. You know, and this is that, you know, that information hub that we're looking for. So, you know, I use this term, you know, not lightly, but you know, I do see this is the beginnings of our road to our digital twin at Warwick. And I think whilst, you know, we're all aware of the more data you rely on, the more data you have to maintain and capture and things. I do think, you know, if you've got smart systems that can do work and that churn for you, then it becomes less of an issue about the volumes of data that you're capturing and things. But whilst that is the case, one of the biggest things I'm a big advocate for is asking people, why do you want that data? What are you going to do with it? Rather than just collecting all the information about every single screw that's in place in a building, what difference is that going to make to you? And how are you going to do it? So I recall kind of asking some of our maintenance teams in a previous institution, what asset information do you want? And they just went, well, we want it all. Like, okay, so you want it all. And I think it's more about kind of, having that opportunity to reflect and say, actually, okay, maybe I shouldn't have asked that question, what information do you want? Maybe we should have rephrased some of those questions and said things like, how do you monitor the effectiveness of your assets? And that in itself kind of helps us kind of start understanding what information we need to collect to help them monitor their assets, or how do you reach decisions about asset replacements, or what maintenance regimes are you following, or how are you monitoring your performance of your teams and things. So being careful about asking what questions, being careful about what questions you ask help you to understand kind of individuals' needs and what that data is that you need to ensure is being captured. But also, like I kind of alluded to earlier, it's about sharing that vision and sharing to people what actually is possible. Coming to events and seeing what Coventry and Birmingham are doing is great, because you kind of go, wow, there's some really smart stuff that we're doing now, things that people haven't got that visioning and belief as well. So you've got to kind of assist people when you're kind of talking about that data capture and transformation. Fun fact, we've got 50,000 spaces on campus, and I think it's about 200 hectares of land, which I understand means that we could have 500 million earthworms. Useless. It's great. I could populate that into the system. I could maybe even try and plot where all the earthworms are. But, unless that's information that's going to become useful for somebody, nobody wants to know kind of where all the earthworms are. So, we're looking at the moment, we're trying to kind of understand and be sensitive about the particularly the asset data that we capture, and really define that, why are you wanting that, how are you going to use it, but at the same time trying to have an eye on the future to make sure that we don't end up going, oh, I wish we'd have captured that, and then have to go around all 500 million assets or whatever we've got to go and recapture that information and things. But it is, like I said, it's about making technology work for us smartly, using kind of tooling to support that data integrity and that cleansing and maintaining of the data, but getting the data onto sharing that data with people is, for me, one of the biggest ways of keeping that data clean, because people are very, very quick to tell you when the room information is wrong, and or that asset doesn't exist anymore, and then making sure you've got all the processes in place to then act on those reports and update them as well. So in terms of kind of that data collection, I strongly recommend, if anyone's at that start of that journey, again, that they are challenging people and saying, why do you need that data? And then it's also about making sure that the data is then interpreted correctly as well. There's two examples here of some very peculiar data clashes. That people have come to a conclusion that the more ice cream sold, there's more murders, or the less number of pirates are, the higher global temperatures are. So there's some really things, and I think as for my team as the guardians of data, we have a responsibility to challenge how people are using that data and interpreting the data as well. And then where we are now, kind of as I kind of reflected earlier, we've set our standards very, very early on. We are still right at the start of this journey, cleansing our data, getting the systems into place, but there's nothing stopping us setting those standards, because those standards will grow and change as we evolve and adapt. And one of the things that we are really clear on as we're working with our external partners, we go, do you know what, we're not very far with our BIM journey at the moment. Work with us on that, and we'll work with you, and help us, and we'll help you in things. And it's about kind of being that honesty about our position at the moment, so that we can continue that journey together with them. So I think kind of for me, starting again, using some of the previous knowledge I've had with previous institutions and in HE sector and other sectors that I've worked in as well, it's certainly given me that courage to really question and challenge people. But I think I've now understood that you have to do that looking backwards as well as the looking forwards, to kind of get the two to connect, and then you've got this kind of shared history and a shared vision as well, which gives us, I think, and I hope, maybe I can come back in 5 years' time and we can share with you all what we've done at Warwick in the last 5 years as well. So that's the end of my presentation. You can find me on LinkedIn if you want, or email me directly. I really don't mind. I think we are going back now to Christine. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and get my mouse to work. 1 second. Sharing, and then I think we are going back to Christine for our roundtable event. Thank you.
Thank you. And can I just say a fabulous thank you, a level of appreciation, and it's obviously coming from me, but it's from the audience today, as to that plethora of information all three of our presenters have provided today. It's been absolutely fabulous, and I'm really aware that we've got quite a mixed audience out there. Some people who are at the real outset of that BIM journey, and I also recognise some of the names of the attendees out there who are very experienced in terms of the BIM journey. And I've got a mix of questions and queries for you, some of which are I'm going to determine as high level, and some are quite system specific. So I'm going to start with a high level, quite a generic question, and I'm actually going to pose that to Joe in the first instance, because it's probably most pertinent to the advice you've been giving. And I've got some quite I'm going to call them that way, system specific queries for Hadeel and Caroline. And to the wider audience, if you've posed a question today and we've only got 18 minutes to address the questions, that's the limitations of this particular conference, but rest assured the presenters will see your questions and they will have the opportunity to respond to you. So if we don't address those today, you will get some level of response. You just simply cannot deal with all. So Joe, in the very first instance, albeit the question applies to all three of you, you're all involved in the management of information, particular to what I would express as reasonably extensive estates. They're not all in one location, but they are fairly extensive. And it would be quite reasonable to assume the anticipated advantages to other clients of a similar nature. So I might be talking government departments, schools, NHS estates. I think that the correlation there is reasonably obvious. And it's not just the public sector. I know substantive retail providers who are using and quite actively using information management and modelling systems. However, there are numerous clients who have substantially smaller estates, and in fact some have singular assets, and their perception is BIM is absolutely not for them, or they perhaps understand the use of information modelling in the delivery of the capital project, in whether it be major refurb or new build, but particular to operations, that's an irrelevance maybe they perceive. So, as I say, Joe, in the first instance, what would be your advice to those, and I'm loath to call them lesser providers, but those clients with substantially smaller asset range?
Yeah, no, I think it's a good question, and I think I reflect on the bigger and the more complex levels of just space and information you're managing. Actually, we're all still doing the same thing whether we've got one building or a million buildings. The only difference is we either employ a million people to churn all of that information and data, or we just get some really smart systems in place to kind of do some of the sense checking and that sort of thing. But ultimately, I think, you know, one of the generally one of the biggest drivers for us all is money. So, you know, if you have got systems in place that is going to kind of looking at all of your assets, even if it's just in one building, you know, you don't want to make any mistakes with any of those assets and things. So, you know, you might decide to stick another tap in because, you know, you've put another sink in the toilets or something like that, and that one then becomes the end leg of a water system. If you don't update all of that information and things, then somebody else coming along is not going to know that necessarily that it's changed and things. And it's about capturing that history, so that as you're looking after and maintaining that singular building, that it's there and it's captured and things. And I don't think it makes any difference, the scalability. This whole BIM approach just scales from you know, one room in one building through to the whole country. You know, you could be looking after everything yourself. So I think it's really important regardless of size. I think just the only difference is you might need to employ either more people or get some really good processes going on in the background to deal with all of the information.
Brilliant. Yeah. Yeah, I would concur, and I can't speak on behalf of Hadeel and Caroline, but I would assume that they would likely concur with your view. And I think one of the comments you made on conclusion of your own presentation is it's not about the assimilation of data for the sake of assimilating data simply because it's there. It's persuading that client or those professionals as to the relevance of data, and it's the key questions that are posed in the very first instance that hopefully lead to success. I've got a couple of questions that have been posed relative to systems, and I've got similar questions for both Caroline and Hadeel, and I'll pose the question first to Caroline because I've got a couple of very direct questions, and I think you did allude to this in your presentation, but perhaps you need to reiterate. Both questions very specific. Why did not Uniclass end up working for you, and what were the challenges that made Uniclass perceived, I'm going to use that word perceived again, as unsuitable? So very similar question. Caroline.
Okay, thank you. I'm probably not qualified to answer that because all of that work was done before I arrived at the University of Birmingham. What I can say and what I can reflect on is we have done things the way that we've wanted to do things. It works for us. And actually listening to some of Joe's presentation, which it's cathartic to hear it, that if we're collecting data and the information that we have, we need to collect it and have it for a purpose, and we need to make it work for us. So all of the hard work that the team had done before I arrived in terms of structure and classification, they have done for a reason, and I have just woven all of the space management elements into it to make it work for us. So unfortunately, I can't answer that question, but I can only reflect on my experience.
Thank you, Caroline, and thank you for being quite open and honest in terms of your response there. Hadeel, I've got a not dissimilar question to you, because the question posed to you specifically is what was the asset classification system that you adopted, which again I think you did allude to, but your response.
Thank you. So the classification system that we use is Uniclass, and we also use SFG20 because SFG20 helps us to group the assets in terms of their maintenance requirements, and we ask for the codes to be included also and tagged to the assets so that we can then refer to them in terms of understanding what kind of maintenance regime should be applied to that asset group. So both of those systems are working for us, and we use both of those to us. Although SFG20 is not a classification, but we do require the codes, and our main classification system is actually Uniclass. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. And I've got a whole series of questions rolled into one, so bear with me in this regard. I've got, what is the current status of the digital twin approach to information management? Would anyone like to kick us off in terms of response? And I'm not overly sure you need to respond in terms of status, but the digital twin approach relative to your particular organisation. Hadeel, do you want to start us there?
Yes, so I see digital twin as an aspiration that would come in the future. When we started our journey, we started to digitize the estates, and at that time, the main focus was to ensure that we have digital information of our estates, our campus buildings, all of our operational data, and our asset information and space information mainly captured and updated. And I see, because we wanted them to be beneficial for the operational aspect, and I see these as the foundation block to later on develop a digital twin. And the term has come very recently, and the Centre of Digital Britain started the DT Hub, which is now part of the UK Catapults, and we are following that program. We are looking at the Gemini principles, and we are following what other organizations are doing to see how that develops. And in my view, I see this develops, at least for our organization, by starting with systems integration, and because that will help us to link the digital information that we have with the physical buildings, in particular through the BMS, because that links to sensors. And this will develop in the future. The quality of data will develop as we continue to capture more asset information and more information on our buildings and on our campus.
Brilliant, thank you, Hadeel. Caroline, I'll offer the same question to you in terms of those digital twins.
Yeah, it is an area that we are very much focused upon as part of our Siemens partnership. I am not involved with those discussions at this stage. I'm far too immersed in the world of space management, but it is something that we are working towards. If anyone has any specific questions for us, I can certainly channel a response to the right person.
Brilliant, thank you. And a real fundamental that, again, you did allude to as part of your presentation, but just maybe to reiterate, and I'll go back to Joe for this one. When you have all of this modelling, all of this data in place, and again, I do appreciate you gave us some sort of reference to this in your presentation, how do you ensure you keep that information updated, the reality of the information?
Yeah, I think there's two ways to this. So in terms of our digital twin, it's so key to us that it becomes an operational tool, so that, you know, and not just for us in the States, it needs to be used by the whole university, the whole organisation needs to embrace this. And then as people start seeing the value of that, you know, that's your kind of crowdfunding almost. You know, the more people that are using it, they're the people that are going to flag up and go, wait, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, and doing that sort of thing and embedding those processes. You know, so we want to make sure we're making, you know, use of, you know, technology at your fingertips so that you can update and access that information if you find it wrong, but embedding that kind of sense of it's not just Joe's team that's sorting it out. Actually, it's our information and our as a university, so that we're all involved in keeping that up to date. And if you don't get that kind of sense of ownership for everybody, you know, with the volumes of data that we're talking about, it is just going to become a dusty old library that nobody refers to. So make it real, make it operational, make people depend on it and want to use it, and then they have an interest to keep it clean.
So following on from that question, and it's another question that's been posed with slightly different terminology, if you are encouraging all stakeholders to use that information, as you say, it's what makes it real and live and people understand the benefits. In terms of accessibility to that tangible information, how do those stakeholders access? And I make the presumption there's no free-for-all, because you, maybe not you as the individual, but someone has to protect that system in terms of currency, data security. So how is access enabled? And rather obviously, I know that depends on the level of information required and what that information is.
Yeah, so I mean, we're looking to provide that that level of open access through Esri, and you know, when you start looking at, you know, all of the kind of modern systems these days, they have really complex permission control systems in place so that you can ensure, you know, you're aligning with all the GDPR regulations, you're not oversharing, you know. And there's certainly areas in the university where actually we might not want to share some of that sensitive data. If there's a rare species of hedgehog living under a tree stump somewhere, you know, some of that information you do want to protect. But actually, again, it's that working the crowdsourcing, the people that are closest to that information, the knowledge, they're going to have the most understanding of what can be shared and what can't be shared. And as an institution, we'll control that kind of at a system level, and also share you know, things widely through our information hubs.
Brilliant, thank you. And I'm very aware we've only got a very short time frame left. So again, I'm going to pose you a generic question, and I'm just going to ask you all three of you to respond in brief. And this is something Hadeel and I have both presented individually and together as part of our community's leadership team roles. And I strongly advocate, and you're the practitioners, so it's for you to respond. I strongly advocate the use of the government soft landings process as part of a project to bring in the asset management providers, to make they part of that team, to make they party to those decisions. Do you all actively, you may not call it government soft landings, but do you actively pose that process? Not poke, do you actively utilise that process? And I'll start with Caroline.
Okay. I actually think, yes, we do follow that approach in terms of soft landing, but I think it's more about taking our stakeholders all the way with us from project inception, from stage 0 all the way through to stage 7, and there isn't a certain phase that you bring them in, and that's why we're looking at the conversations about visualization of space to try and understand what everyone's requirements are, and to try and capture them right from the very start of the project, because trying to weave in or make changes to a project midway through is incredibly challenging, especially in terms of a building project. You know, once that brief is frozen, it's very difficult to unpick it. So yes, we do subscribe to soft landings, but it's much more than that. It is the whole journey together. And I think one of the elements of my role is I spend so much time talking to our colleges, talking to our professional services, and actually making everything transparent. And that doesn't happen overnight. You know, that there is a lot of time and effort involved in sharing, and even through our CDE, which we call our web space, is a really good way as a starting point to signpost stakeholders to, this is the information, this is the data we have, and very slowly we are starting to get a lot of feedback to say, oh, well, actually, I've been looking at this plan and I've been looking at this, and this is where we need to redesign the building because we think, and they're the ones that know and understand, and so it's creating that forum for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And my reference to soft landings is those parties are involved from inception and all the way through that journey. Absolutely. I'm not going to go to Joe because I could see Joe nodding as you were speaking. What I'm going to do for the final minute is I'm going to pass to Hadeel. You don't have to respond to that particular question, but you put this conference together. So I'll give you the final minute to conclude. Thank you, and thank you all.
Thank you all very much. I absolutely agree with Caroline. It's the same process for us in regards to soft landings, and it's about the client engagement. We do engage with our clients, our faculties, who are the main users of the space, and that helps us to define our design brief and follow through the project. I'd like to say a huge thanks to our panel today. It was an excellent presentation from Caroline. We always learn a lot from University of Birmingham from the progress that they've achieved in terms of managing their building information. And huge thanks to Joe Bishop, who also shared excellent insights on the developments happening at University of Warwick. And also, of course, thank you so much to Christine for chairing the panel today. And I would like to just extend the invite to everybody today to continue communicating with us through the BIM Forest States network, the Women in BIM network, the BIM 4FM network, and of course the UK BIM Alliance main network, which we all support to continue the conversations and continue the connections. So thank you all for attending the presentation today, and we look forward to speaking to you soon. Thanks.
Thank you. And my final comment is we are a really good example of collaborative working. So thank you to all the attendees, and thank you to our people in the background, Pam and Di, for facilitating. Thank you all.
Thank you.